Have you ever looked at someone from Scotland, then someone from Ireland, and thought, they kind of seem alike? It's not just the accents or the kilts. The music, the myths, even the way they love a good story, it all feels somehow connected. But are the Scottish and Irish really related? Well, the answer is more surprising and more interesting than you might think. Let's take a journey back through time, across the rugged cliffs of Ireland, into the misty highlands of Scotland, and deep into ancient tribal roots, to uncover whether these two proud peoples share more than just a Celtic spirit. Now let's delve in. To understand the deep roots of the Irish people, we need to go way back, over 10,000 years ago, when the Ice Age ended. As the glaciers melted, small bands of people made their way to the island we now call Ireland. These first settlers were hunters and gatherers. They lived off the land, used stone tools, and left behind clues in caves and ancient tombs. But the real cultural turning point came around 500 BC with the arrival of the Celts, a large group of tribes who came from Central Europe. They didn't all arrive at once. Some sailed across the sea, others came in waves over centuries. These Celts brought with them a completely new way of life, rich oral traditions, poetic myths, and a belief in nature's spirits and many gods. They worshipped figures like Lugh, the warrior god, and Brigid, the goddess of healing and fertility. They also introduced a new language, what we now call Gaelic. Over time, these early tribes united under a shared identity that blended spiritual life, storytelling, music, and a close relationship with the land. This became the foundation of Irish culture. And all of it happened before Scotland even began to take shape as a nation. Now, let's explore the origins of Scotland. Let's discover where the Scottish people really came from. Scotland has always been a land of rugged beauty, mountains, forests, and remote islands. In ancient times, it was home to several tribes, but one group stands out, the Picts. These were fierce, tattooed warriors who lived mainly in the north and east. They built stone forts, carved mysterious symbols on rocks, and lived in tight-knit communities. But then, around the 5th century AD, something big happened. A tribe from Ireland, known as the Scotti, crossed the narrow sea and settled in the western part of Scotland. They came from a kingdom called Dalriada in Northern Ireland and brought their Gaelic culture with them, language, music, beliefs, and even some of their gods. These Irish settlers began to mix with the local Pictish tribes. Over time, their language spread, their customs blended, and their influence grew stronger. Eventually, the name of their tribe, Scotti, gave birth to the name Scotland. So in a very real way, part of what we now call Scotland was shaped by the Irish. Their blood, their stories, and their culture crossed the sea and took root in the Highlands. It wasn't just neighbors becoming friends. It was family reuniting across the water. Here's where things get truly fascinating, because the Irish and Scottish don't just share a border across the sea. They share deep Celtic roots. The Celts were once spread across much of Europe. You could find them in what is now Spain, France, and even Turkey. But over time, they were pushed west by invading empires, especially the Romans. The Celts who made it to the British Isles, especially to Ireland and Scotland, developed their own unique culture. But their foundation remained the same. They honored similar gods, told similar legends, and believed in the magic of nature. Sacred wells, oak trees, misty hills, these were not just places. They were living spirits. The Irish and the Scots also spoke languages from the same Celtic branch, called Gaelic or Gaelic. Early Irish and early Scottish Gaelic were so similar that people could easily understand each other. Even today, the music reflects this bond. Both traditions include bagpipes, harps, and fiddles. Their songs often tell of love, loss, and battles, filled with emotion and storytelling. And their folk tales? Both cultures speak of giants, fairies, and warrior heroes who stood against the odds. Different names, maybe, but the same spirit. These are not just similar cultures. They're two branches of the same Celtic tree. Now let's talk about what happened next. The story of Scotland and Ireland isn't just peaceful roots and shared songs. It's also a tale of invasions, conflicts, and survival. In the 8th and 9th centuries, both lands were attacked by the Vikings, warriors from Scandinavia who came in longboats to raid, plunder, and sometimes settle. They hit monasteries, villages, and trading towns. But they didn't just destroy, they stayed. Over time, the Vikings blended into local life, married local women, and brought new blood into Irish and Scottish lineages. But the biggest test came later, from the south. The English tried to control both Scotland and Ireland. In Ireland, they brought new laws, took land, and suppressed native language and religion. In Scotland, they tried to impose rule, but were fiercely resisted. Brave leaders like William Wallace and Robert the Bruce rose to fight for Scottish freedom. And in Ireland, countless rebellions broke out over the centuries. Sometimes, Irish and Scottish warriors even fought side by side, united by a common enemy. Through all of this, identity changed. The Irish became more Irish. The Scots became more Scottish. But their bond, built on struggle and shared resistance, remained. Enemies tried to divide them, but history kept reminding them they weren't strangers. They were kin. With all that said, let's now delve further and explore how family identity shaped their societies. Family meant everything to both the Irish and the Scottish, but they didn't think of family the way we do today. Instead of just mother, father, and children, they belonged to septs in Ireland and clans in Scotland. These were large extended families, made up of people who shared the same name, loyalty, or land. A clan wasn't just about blood. It was about protection, survival, and honor. People stood together. They fought together. They even sang and prayed together. In both cultures, names carried deep meaning. Names beginning with Mac or MC meant son of. For example, MacDonald means son of Donald. Irish names often began with O, which means descendant of. For example, O'Connor means descendant of Connor. Some names appear in both Ireland and Scotland. One example is MacNeil, originally Irish, but also found in Western Scotland. This shows how families moved across the sea and settled in both places. These names still live on today. If your last name begins with Mac, MC, or O, you're likely tied to an ancient family line from the Celtic past. And behind every name is a story of migration, survival, and pride. In Ireland and Scotland, your name was more than a label. It was a legacy. Having understood all of that, let's now delve deeper to see how their journeys spread across the world. In later centuries, something changed. Ireland and Scotland, two proud and ancient lands, saw their people begin to leave. The reasons were painful. Poverty, war, famine, and religious persecution pushed millions to search for a better life. The Irish left in huge waves, especially during the Great Famine of the 1840s. The Scots, too, particularly from the Highlands, faced what's known as the Highland clearances, where many families were forced off their land. With few options left, they packed their belongings and set sail. Where did they go? Mostly to America, Canada, and Australia. And when they arrived, they didn't scatter far. Often, Irish and Scottish immigrants ended up living right next to each other, especially in places like Boston, New York, and Nova Scotia. They brought their traditions with them: Irish pubs and Scottish ceilidhs, St. Patrick's Day parades and Highland games. In many communities, the two cultures mixed naturally, marrying, celebrating, and building a new future together. Even now, many families in North America have both Irish and Scottish ancestry. Their great-grandparents might have spoken Gaelic. Their surnames still start with Mac or O. So while they left their homelands, they carried their shared identity across the ocean, spreading Celtic pride far and wide. This then brings us to the question of science and genetic truth. History gives us clues, but science gives us proof. Over the last few decades, genetic research has uncovered something fascinating. Irish and Scottish people are closely related at the DNA level. One of the most common genetic markers found in both populations is the R1b haplogroup, especially the R1b M222 variant. This is a Y-DNA marker passed down from father to son, and it's especially strong in Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. This isn't a coincidence. It directly links back to the ancient Irish tribes who migrated across the sea into Scotland centuries ago. In fact, people living in Ulster, Northern Ireland, and Argyll, Western Scotland, are genetically almost indistinguishable. Their ancestors moved back and forth for generations, trading, marrying, and fighting together. Of course, not all DNA is exactly the same. Some areas of Scotland, especially in the north and islands like Orkney, show more Viking ancestry. And some parts of Ireland have markers tied specifically to old Gaelic kings and clans. But overall, the picture is clear. The Irish and the Scottish are not just neighbors or allies. They're genetic cousins, sharing deep roots from the same ancient people. So if you've got Celtic blood, chances are it's both Irish and Scottish. Language also is one of the clearest windows into where we come from, and Irish and Scottish languages tell a powerful story. Both peoples once spoke versions of the same language, a Celtic tongue called Old Irish. This was the spoken language of early medieval Ireland and the Kingdom of Dalriada, which also stretched into western Scotland. As time passed, the language in Ireland evolved into what we now call Irish Gaelic, while in Scotland, it became Scottish Gaelic. They remained close for a long time, close enough that medieval Scots could understand Irish monks and poets. But centuries of political change, isolation, and colonization caused the languages to drift apart. Today, they're still similar, but different enough to be considered separate languages. Think of it like Spanish and Portuguese, related, sharing many words and sounds, but not exactly the same. Sadly, both Irish and Scottish Gaelic have been endangered. English replaced them in schools, churches, and public life. Fewer and fewer people grew up speaking them. But that's changing. In recent years, cultural revival movements have reignited interest. Schools are teaching Gaelic again. Street signs, songs, and TV programs are making a comeback. These languages aren't just words. They're a shared voice from the past, whispering, "Don't forget where you come from." Now let's take a closer look at what truly defines their spirit. When you look beyond blood and borders, you find something even more powerful, and that is culture. And both the Irish and Scottish hold theirs close to the heart. They both love storytelling. For centuries, tales of warriors, saints, and magical creatures were passed down by word of mouth. From Irish legends of Cú Chulainn to Scottish tales of Robert the Bruce, these stories weren't just entertainment. They were lessons in courage, loyalty, and honor. Music also plays a central role in both cultures. The bagpipes, once used in battle, now echo at weddings and funerals. The Celtic harp, once played in royal courts, still rings with ancient emotion. And the fiddle, lively and fast, brings people together at gatherings and dances. Both peoples also share a deep respect for nature, the land, the sea, the sky. Hills, lakes, and stone circles are not just places, but sacred spaces. Spiritually, both nations have strong Catholic and Protestant traditions, shaped by centuries of struggle and faith. Their churches, festivals, and holidays reflect a mix of religious devotion and cultural pride. Despite facing invasions, forced immigration, and many hardships, the Irish and Scottish held tightly to their roots. Their deep sense of pride is more than just tradition. It's who they are. It's their identity. It's their family. Now back to addressing the big question. Are Scottish and Irish people truly related? After everything we've explored, the history, the migrations, the DNA, the culture, the answer is yes. They share the following. Number 1, Celtic roots, stretching back to ancient Europe. Number 2, a common language origin, from Old Irish to modern Gaelic dialects. Number 3, genetic links, especially between Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. Number 4, family names and clan traditions, rooted in the same tribal systems. Number 5, shared experience of struggle, survival, and identity. But that doesn't mean they're identical. Each group has its own flavor, its own heroes, its own heartbreaks. Irish identity is rich with its own myths and rhythms. Scottish identity, on the other hand, carries its own legends and pride. Yet, to know one is often to understand the other. Like branches of the same tree, they've grown in different directions, but they still share the same roots. Today, their connection lives on in music, in names, in families across the world, and in the hearts of people who cherish where they came from. So whether you're Irish, Scottish, or a mix of both, be proud. Because behind the kilts and the clovers lies a powerful truth. These two peoples have always been more than neighbors. They've been family, all along. At the end of the day, it's not just about where people come from. It's also about where they're going. And both Scotland and Ireland have become symbols of pride around the world. Whether you're dancing to a fiddle in Donegal or hiking through the highlands of Glencoe, you're walking in the footsteps of a people who have shared stories, songs, and struggles for generations. So yes, Irish and Scottish people are related, not just in history, but in heart. If this journey through Celtic roots stirred something in you, don't let it end here. Hit the like button if you learned something new. Subscribe for more untold stories about the past that still shape our lives today. And leave us a comment. Do you have Irish or Scottish roots? We'd love to hear your family story. Until next time, keep exploring, keep remembering, and keep the legacy alive. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.